Right. Hi, everybody. How's everybody's MIP going? Yeah? Great. Applause. Are you excited? Day one. Is everybody jet lagged and ready to rock and roll? Yeah? Well, this is obviously going to be an interactive session. I am Amber J. Lawson. I'm the CEO of Comedy Gives Back. We are a social benefit enterprise, and we do comedy events around the globe, live streamed, with various, whether online or traditional comics, to raise money for charity. And so we leverage all the platforms to draw different revenue streams to, oh, hey, that's me. And we won an award. How about that? The IAWTV Best Live Event Award. So thank you. Go on. I'm very excited for this session. I want to dig right in because I want you to get the most value out of this. I want you to walk away with some nuggets of information that you can take out that are practical, that you can go and be fabulous and prosperous. All right? Who's up for that? Yes, all right. Who in the room is a producer, a content producer? Lots of content producers, fantastic. How many of you have worked with brands already? Oy vey, so you know what you're in for. Okay, good. So we're gonna get into the nitty gritty. I'm thrilled to have my partner in crime here. Before we dig into this, you can tweet at us. I'm at Amber J. Lawson. He's at Mark Grande. And obviously we're at MIP, and the hashtag is MIPCube. So we'll have 30 minutes to chat. Please tweet, take pictures, videos of yourself, finds, IG, whatevs. All right, so Mark Grande and I go way back. I mean, we kind of invented the internet, us and Al Gore.
Yeah.
And in 2008, we were out there doing branded entertainment. And that was an interesting journey, to say the least. But the good news is that you can learn from our mistakes. And so I just want to open the floor right now. Throughout this, we're going to just take you through some slides and some learnings, a couple case studies of projects that are happening right now with some brands. And so raise your hand, shout out if you have a question, if you want to dig deeper on something. If you're like, what does that mean? Let's do it. So we're here to figure this out and to help everybody prosper as brands become, content creators and media companies. It is the time to get into bed, so to speak, every more it can, right? Get into bed with some brands. So I want to turn it over to my pal, Mark Grande. We go way back, and he is now at MEC.
Yes.
He is the guy in charge of original content, making branded content from the brand side.
Correct.
And so talk us through what you're actually doing right now.
So I'm Mark Grande. I work for MEC, the global media agency. I am inside the content practice. Essentially, our group does integrations and original programming for our roster of brands, clients like AT&T and Citibank and Michelin and KFC and things like that. And we exist because the industry is changing. I'm sure it's not news to a lot of you folks here. With so many different platforms out there right now and so many different ways for a brand to tell its story, it's become more important than ever to actually have a narrative to tell a story, as opposed to just pushing out 30-second spots. So this is how to brand it like Beckham.
We won't be playing soccer.
We're not playing soccer today. And I don't have the rights to use David Beckham, so please don't sue me. So working with brands. Most of you have already worked with brands before, which is great, so we don't have to really get into this. I think the one thing that I will say on this slide is that it's really, really a great time to work with brands. The networks and the studios, their budgets are shrinking. They're under the gun. They have to answer for increased revenue and things like that, and they're constantly looking for new funding sources. So working with advertisers is really, really becoming something that they're focused on more and more at the beginning of the process, at the beginning of the creative process. But a couple things just to keep in mind when working with brands. One is J. Jonah Jameson. J. Jonah Jameson is a publisher, and we now believe, and many of you may believe the same thing, that brands have become publishers. It's not enough anymore, just to have a message. You have to have a story. You have to be able to tell that story across all these different channels. They're almost like network programmers, right? You got TV, you have digital, you have social, mobile, print, out of home, all these different screens. All these different screens need content. How do you create that content? How do you make it all work together in a seamless ecosystem?
And I think that's been a missing, right?
Yeah.
Is that your right hand was not talking to your left hand.
Yeah, correct. So it's become really, really important now to kind of develop that content strategy. The next thing to keep in mind, we know...
Now, real quick,
oh, yeah, please.
Should a producer come with that 360 idea, or is that something that you work with them on, or how does that work?
It's a great question. It's not enough. It's not enough, frankly, just to come with an idea. It's really become, and this slide is actually going to get to that. Before, you could just have a great idea and like, hey, look at this great idea. Isn't it amazing? You should do this. Now it's, well, how are you going to distribute it? Who's going to see it? How are we going to get it out there? And it's not enough anymore just to say, well, that's the media agency's job, or that's, somebody else's job. I'm just a content producer. All I do is make content. It's time to kind of open your mind a little bit and start thinking about distribution so that when you go in there with your content, you already have a bit of a strategy in place, right? We're going to use Facebook. We're going to use Instagram. We're going to use VOD, whatever that may be, to push out that content. So if content is king, what's distribution? God. It's terrible, actually. That's a terrible, terrible analogy. But the reason why we like to say distribution is God, because God is everywhere. And that's what distribution is, right? It's everywhere. It's when you wake up in the morning and you turn on your TV, when you open up your newspaper, your magazine, you look at your phone. Those are all different channels. Those are all different ways that you can communicate with your audience. The last thing to keep in mind when working with brands, and I can't stress this one enough, it's not about you. It is never, ever, ever about you.
I don't understand.
It is always about the advertiser. And that's something. My background is not advertising. I'm an entertainment executive. I grew up, I did development at USA Networks, and then I was at the studio developing TV shows. And then I ran development for Howard Stern's TV and film company. So my background is entertainment programming. And this was eye-opening for me because I used to believe that it was all about the content, right? All you needed was a great, make the content great. That's all that matters. And now it's, well, the content has to be great, but does it ladder up to a brand message? Is it pushing, that communication that I want my audience to absorb? So it becomes that balancing act, right? You don't want to trade, you don't want to sell your soul. You don't want to give up all your creative integrity. But at the same time, you got to be able to integrate that brand message in a really seamless way so people will actually watch it and share it. So what to expect when working with advertisers?
Dun, 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 dun.
It's all in the timing. And this is probably not news to you either. 1 minute, you have this great idea, and you're talking to Ford. And you're like, wow, look at this great series that I have, Ford. You really should do it. Well, it's not really lined up with our messaging right now. Oh, okay, maybe some other time. 2 weeks later, Ford calls, hey, our whole messaging has changed, and your idea might work now. And it's literally like that. They have all these different brands. They have all these different messages. It changes so rapidly. It's shocking at times. Because you put your heart and soul into something, and you're like, this is so great. This is something you said you wanted. Yeah, but now the brand message has changed a little bit. Numbers are down. We have to do this. So you just have to be patient and understand that it is timing.
And are you are you coming in with an original idea, or are you working with the brand to shape something?
Ideally, you're working with the brand to shape something, but that's hard, right? Because you might not have...
Is that the RFP process, or is that somewhere in between.
It's somewhere in between. You want to establish that relationship with an advertiser or with a media agency or with an advertiser who has those relationships. Because as a content provider, as a content producer, it's hard. I mean, if you don't know anyone in that world, or you're going to cold call the brand.
Well, yeah, right. How do I meet those people? Well, how do I get in on that? Like, how am I in that pipeline?
Well, it is the advertising community. It is the media agency. Their jobs are to represent their brand. So they're taking pitches every day. They're listening to ideas. That's what they get paid for. So that's a great way to go. And then, look, online now, LinkedIn, there are services now where the brand managers themselves are actively out there, and they're in the space, and they're looking to talk, and they're looking to learn. So, it's finding the right people to talk to, and it's a process. It is. A lot of cooks in the kitchen in branded content. So it's not just you as a content producer, it's not just the brand, it's their advertising agency, it's their media agency, it's their digital agency, it's their social agency, it's their mother, it's their brother-in-law, it's their uncle. They all want to have a say, they all want to work together on the program, and it needs to work for everybody. They talk about these integrated groups, right? Across all these different agencies, they all have to be on the same page, they all have to agree on the same thing, and again, it's a process. There's diplomacy that goes into that.
Yeah, as a producer, how do you manage that, or who do you pick who to talk to like message you in the best way? I
mean, I think the key here is we never say no. We always say we'll get back to you. You don't want to be.
That is tweetable.
You don't want to be. It's funny. I've worked with a lot of producers over the years, and producers who just start out in branded content. And brands ask questions. They ask sometimes ridiculous questions because guess what? They're not content producers. They're sellers of widgets or sneakers or TVs. They don't know how to produce long-form content. So they're going to ask questions, and you're going to be like, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. But every time that you say no, the brand becomes more, they in tune look at you as being difficult. And you're like, wait, how? I'm not being difficult. Like, there are certain practicalities that you have to realize. So it's being diplomatic about it. It's talking them through it. Because again, they don't make content for a living, so you can't expect them to just understand everything you're saying, and this is what the format is, and it's this many minutes, and this is what the creative's going to look like. They're going to be like, whoa, slow down. I don't understand all that. So it's getting in there early and talking them through it. And then finally, success doesn't guarantee a sequel. Okay, so you sold the show, you did this great. Whether it's let's say you did a 6-episode digital series with a brand, oh my God, it was amazing, and it got 10 million views, and the social chatter was great, and the brand study was awesome. Everybody at the company loves it. You look like a hero. Great, so when can we do season 2? Let's talk about the next one. Oh, our budgets have been cut. We can't do another one. Don't take that personally. That is a fact with working with brands. To my point earlier about all those different messages in the space, it really, really holds true. We just, personally, I just did a big program with Energizer and Tiny Commando on Yahoo. Great series, did really, really well. Energizer loved it. They literally said, we would love to do a second season, but this doesn't ladder up into our brand message anymore. We're going this direction, and it just doesn't fit. Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, I would say that what you walk away with is A, owning the rights to the content.
Right.
Which then you can sell here. Hey. Yeah. And the second thing is you then have a case study that you can go build,
exactly,
off of somebody else's back, that you can build out season 2 or your plethora of other genius ideas.
Right.
Right.
At the end of the day, right. At the end of the day, even if they don't renew it, you have proof of concept, right? So now you can go to other advertisers and you can say, look at this great thing that I did, look at the great numbers that we got, the client loved it, all this stuff, and you can use that to generate more business. Taking action. So now that we know what to expect, how do I do it? How do I approach these advertisers? Do your homework. It's a cliche, but study up on the brand. You want to work with Toyota, you want to work with Adidas, Read about them. What are they doing? Have they done branded content before? Are there things that they've had success in? A lot, I mean, with the internet, everything's up there now. There are no secrets, right? So just learn about the brand, get a sense for what they are as a company. I know it's like, well, we don't, how am I going to know that without actually talking to somebody? It's difficult, but it makes such an impact when you go in there and finally get in front of the brand and you actually have something to say about the brand. And it's not just like, well, we thought this was great for you because your logo would look cool on it. It's not enough. So do your homework. Make it meaningful. This has become really, really critical to the process. So a brand wants something that's ownable. If I'm Audi, I don't want something that BMW would do or Mercedes would do. So don't give me something that you can just take the logo out and put another logo in. And that goes into understanding the brand. And when you get to that part in the process and you start to get to know the brand and have those conversations with the advertisers or the media agencies or whoever, you'll get a better sense for what those things are, and you can really make an integrated program that will matter and will matter to them. Determine distribution. We talked about this already. Don't go in and say, well, you guys can distribute it however you want. Come up with a strategy. Talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues. What's the best way to distribute short form content? Are we going to go to Yahoo? Are we going to distribute it through AOL? How are we going to promote it? Are we going to use Vine videos on Twitter? Are we going to use text messages? How are we going to get people to understand what the content is and where they can consume it? And lastly, be softly persistent. Brand managers, they have full days every day. They are not producers of content. They have a million other things to do. Hey, I called. You never called me back. Hey, I submitted a proposal, and it's been 6 weeks, and you still haven't gotten back to me yet. Those are kind of sometimes facts in the process. Again, don't take it personally. Just be persistent. You don't want to call them every day and be like, where are we with this, where are we with that? But you want to remind them, on a weekly basis or on a bi-weekly basis, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, we need feedback. They need timing, they need timelines. That should all be built into your content plan. So making a case, 2 quick case studies that we're going to walk you through.
So the first one is City Walk. This started out as a project called Everybody Walks that was a branded campaign for Kaiser Permanente. And throughout the process, what we found is there was a lot of awesome content. And what we put together was a 30-minute show that's on KCET in Link. And how it blew up. So not only do we have a whole bunch of websites, a whole bunch of nonprofits, it's a walking movement, it's a new urbanism movement. We can go to the next slide. But we also partnered with Funny or Die, and we did a remake of The West Wing. You know how every day was a walk and talk in The West Wing? So we reunited the cast, and it's one of the, immortal videos on Funny or Die. But the whole ecosystem created 500 minutes of content for the brand that we then quelled together for this. We'll just show you a little snippet of...
New York City couldn't be happier to welcome all of you and to host the International Urban Parks Conference this year.
Our expressed goal is to be the healthiest, fittest population in the country. Denver's the 5th fittest city. We want to be first in everything. We're very competitive.
As mayor, I always try to walk in every part of the city on a regular basis so that I get that sort of human time observation of what's really going on. I walk, I bike, I transit, I don't skateboard.
And one of the most wonderful things about Pasadena is being able to wake up every morning, look up at Mount Wilson, and realize that you are in the place where it was discovered that the universe is expanding.
Tell me about where we are right now.
The world famous, most iconic Main Street in Disneyland Park. And it's beyond cool because, millions and millions of people have walked through here.
This is my dog Marlo. She's about 5 months old. We adopted her close to 6 weeks ago. She was a stray. They had found her at a park. She came in and kind of fell into me just
so
like
we go
this.
to cities and...
Sorry, it jumped.
We go into cities, we explore the walkable areas, showing the towns and the people in them. So that is City Walk.
The next one is Culinary Beats. This is a program that we did for City Thank You Card. City is one of our clients. They have a big push right now in dining and entertainment. As anyone here with a credit card knows, points are big. But what do the points get you? What do you do? How do you understand what one card benefits are versus another? It's one of the biggest issues in the category, quite frankly, in general, is that understanding. I don't know what points even get me anymore, and it tends to be a process. Dining and entertainment is their focus, and they wanted to try something new. This is something else to think about. Not every brand wants to do branded content. There are brands that want to explore it. They want to do test and learns. They want to try it out, which makes it a great time for producers like you guys, because you can say, look, here is an inexpensive way to create great content that you can own and distribute to the masses. So what we did was we created a series, Culinary Beats. It was famous chefs and famous musicians. They came together. The chef walked the musician through his creative process in the kitchen. The musician walked the chef through their creative process, whether it was in the studio or via conversation. They had a meal together, and then the musician performed inside the chef's restaurant. 6 episodes, 10 minutes long. We got a tremendous amount of bonus content out of it because we owned it. So there were music videos, there were behind-the-scenes content, there were photos. All of those things need to be thought about up front when you're putting together your plans, because all that extra content is just promotional material that'll give the program legs.
And that's like key, right?
Right.
All of that extra content. So you want to think about that when you're producing. We made a television show out of it, right? So you've extended the length of the campaign through the extra content.
Right. And it's important to note for this one too, it takes a village, right? It wasn't enough for MEC to come in and say, here's an idea. We brought in Backroads Entertainment, which is producers of Pawn Stars. We brought in Columbia Records, who was able to provide the artists at a lower cost, so we didn't have to pay these exorbitant talent fees. And then we shopped it to Yahoo. So the other thing that's great about branded content and this day and age is if you can own it, when you set out, you can shop it around the portals, just like you're shopping around television shows to the networks. And let them come back to you. So instead of having to pay for all that distribution, you're still going to have to pay for it. But what you can do is you can see who's going to throw in the most added value, who's going to give you the most editorial coverage. All of those things play a role in deciding who the best distribution partner is. Here's just a little clip.
If you focus on winning the award, the art almost always suffers. How do you deal with criticism?
I actually get to do my hobby for a living. Who's luckier than that?
Nice. So key takeaways. Just to wrap up in the last couple minutes, couple things to take away from this. Prepare yourself. As I said, it's a long road. A lot of hurdles along the way. Just be ready for it. Have patience. Distribution is critical. There are too many channels. There's too much noise. The internet is an abyss. Television networks, there's more than you can count. You really have to go in with a firm understanding of how how your content is going to be seen. It's not about you. I wish it was. I wish it was about me. I wish it was about Amber.
Totally wish it was about me.
But it's not. It's always going to be about the brand. So just be diplomatic. Look, the really great brands, the brands who do it the best are the ones that believe in your creative vision, right? They understand that you guys are content producers. This is what you do best. So they're going to give you that flexibility to create the way you want to create. I don't want it to sound like, they're just going to beat you down into a 30-second spot, although that's happened. Ideally, they're going to work with you like Culinary Beats. They were very, very hands-off in terms of the creative and enabled us to tell the story the way we wanted to tell it. And then lastly, timing. Again, timing is everything. 1 week it doesn't work. The next week it does work.
Hey, what's the secret of comedy?
What's the secret of comedy?
Uh-huh.
Timing.
And with that, we would love your questions and your applause. Anybody have questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
What about the ownership of the rights in your experience? So you are able to maintain the property of the format or of the content.
Exactly. If you're creating it yourself and you're bringing it to an advertiser, you can make a case to co-own the content. So in the case of Culinary Beats, we own that jointly with City, Columbia Records, and Backroads. That will not always be the case. It's really based on what the brand is. Some brands, it's funny. Some brands don't want to own it. They're like, we're not in the business of owning content. We just want to get a message out. Our flight's only.
Well, and that's a good point, right? Brands don't always have the pipelines to give it a second window or another life. And so it should fall in the producer's or agency's hand who knows how to monetize it again and again.
Anyone else?
Yes.
All the
Oh,
way in the
Lord. I am not Phil Donahue. Where are you? Raise your hand. Okay.
What is your experience in terms of fictional brand content?
My experience has been good.
I
but
just don't see it as much, so I'm curious.
Yeah, it's harder. Tiny Commando was the Energizer series we did. That was a scripted comedy. Scripted is harder to do for a couple reasons. One is it's not real, so brands have legally all kinds of rules and business objectives and things like that they can't be associated with content like X or like Y. A lot of the scripted stuff online right now is comedy, and comedy is just subjective. So your brand manager will be like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And then their boss is going to be like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
That's why Comedy Gives Back is such a good fit, because you leverage charity in order to soften the comedy blow.
Exactly.
Lord knows it is subjective.
Yes.
Next question.
Anyone else?
Question?
Okay, great.
Well, have an awesome
MIP, guys. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you all.